Alright, this is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. Today we have another exciting episode for you. The sun's setting here, but we got my lights on in the backyard and still hanging out in my garden. The weather's kind of nice. It says like about 69 degrees today outside at 7:30 at night. Anyways, in today's episode, I'll be answering your guys' questions in a Q&A format. If you have a question that you want me to answer, check the link down below. It'll go to my YouTube community tab where you can ask a question that may get included in next month's video. I want to apologize in advance that I have a lot of followers on different social media outlets, and I do not answer people's questions as they come in because that'd be a full-time job. And just as it is, trying to take care of my garden, harvest crops, process it into salads, and then freeze dry it, or make my juices like I was doing earlier, make my dinner and get my business running, and keep my house clean and get my cars taken care of and all the things that life do. I don't have time to, do that one extra thing. But if you do, so yeah, you could submit a question for next month's Q&A. And if you do want to talk to me, I do have a way you could do that for just $5 plus $2 service fee. You could talk to me for 10 minutes. It says it's a garden coaching, but I'll be glad to talk to you about any topic that I am able to answer your guys' questions on the phone. And all the money that comes in from the Fiverr campaign, once again, link is down below, goes back into the Fiverr community to help get my videos transcribed for people that are hearing impaired or speak foreign languages. So I want to thank you guys in advance for those of you guys that will do a Fiverr, or thank you guys who have done it in the past. All right. Anyways, on with today's questions. First question is from Carolyn Warmock. What are some good meals to help you get through 12 hours of office days when you can't bring a juicer or a blender and no access to a fridge? Thanks in advance. All right, Carolyn, so 12-hour office days. That's a good question. So no fridge and no juicer or blender. Wow. So number one, I'd see if you could bring in your own fridge or portable cooler, right? I mean, you should be able to bring a portable cooler with some ice packs that'll at least keep some things cold. So number one thing I would do, what I would bring personally, is I would bring a juice with me to drink at work. That'd probably be 32 ounces of juice. The other thing I'd bring is I'd bring a nice large salad to eat. So between those, I'd be like maybe like one juice, one salad, maybe a smoothie in the afternoon that you could make in a vacuum blender stored under vacuum in your cooler. If you could do that with some ice packs and then refreeze your ice packs. They got some really cool coolers these days. They got these ones that are will keep things cold for like 24 hours and all these crazy things. So that's number one. And then the other thing I'd do is I'd bring fresh fruits, so that's the easiest thing to do by far. You could keep it fresh, just keep the stuff cold. I would probably eat the fruits later in the day because they don't really need to be fridged for the most part, but I would eat the juice, the smoothie, and the salad, earlier part of the day. Now the other thing, this is totally extra credit, I wouldn't just start snacking on nuts or seeds, because then you could overeat those. I'd have some nuts and seeds actually in with the salad in the form of the dressing. We really want to still try to maintain and eat high volumes of fresh fruits and fresh vegetables as possible. The other thing that's totally extra credit that I would not expect anybody to do this, but I am able to do this now. I did get a freeze dryer, and I'll have an episode on that, one of these days soon. I've had some challenges with it, so I don't want to really promote it all out yet, but I love the process. So I was recently traveling, and I basically picked arugula from my garden. I made basically a salad dressing, and I basically freeze-dried arugula salad, which, if you tried to equate it to something, it'd be kind of similar to kale chips, but it's totally different because it's literally just full-on salad, just freeze-dried with the dressing mixed up, and it's crisp and just dissolves in your mouth, and it keeps 90%, 99% of the nutrients in there compared to dehydration, where you could lose 40 to 60% of the nutrients. So, but yeah, that's extra credit. That's what I would do because I have a freeze dryer. But the freeze dryers are $2,000 to $3,000. So I would just say keep it fresh. Invest in a good cooler that you could plug in. They have thermoelectric coolers if you could have a little cooler at work, or just bring just a cooler with you with ice packs to keep your stuff cold. Shouldn't be a problem. Next question is from Gabriel F. Do you make cultured yogurt cheese from coconuts or certain nuts? If so, what are your tips on culturing raw vegan yogurts, etc.? So Gabriel, I rarely make cultured yogurts. I should do that more. You know, it's on my list to do, and I would like to eat every nut or seed that I eat. You know, optimally would be cultured. I think that'd be a lot better than eating them raw. That being said, I don't tend to eat a lot of nuts or seeds. You know, I eat maybe a handful or two a day. You know, not too much. If I cultured more nuts and seeds, would I probably eat more of them? Yes, and that would, in my opinion, not be so good because it would displace leafy greens that I have endless amounts of to eat from my garden, which I believe are better than cultured, nuts. Although, you know, I do like to eat a little, like a spoonful or two, or I could substitute the cultured, nuts for my raw nuts that I would be using in my blended mixture. I think that would be really cool. The only one that I really make on any regular basis is coconut. So I will culture young coconut meat. I'll basically use the starter culture from Cocoyo. So it's another coconut, raw, unpasteurized coconut yogurt product. And I'll basically just, get the nice young coconut, blend it up with the coconut water, get it to a nice texture, and put in the probiotics in there, and then basically put it in a yogurt maker that keeps it about 100 degrees, and that happens within like 24 hours, so it's relatively pretty quick to culture yogurt. And then I'll basically put it in the fridge under vacuum, and then, they'll stay fresh in there for a while until I'm ready to eat them. And then when I eat them, I usually like to eat my cultured yogurt, so there's some fat in there with like high antioxidant foods such as blueberries, so I get a greater uptake of some of the phytonutrients in the blueberries. That's about all I can say about that. So, undefined user asks, how would you make baby food? So that's a good question. I don't yet have a baby, nor can I ever personally have a baby, although I do want to have a baby with my partner when I find a partner one of these days. So baby food. So normally baby food is like cooked and then basically blended up to make it a mush because babies don't have teeth. I don't know that I'd be cooking things up to make it into a mush to feed my baby. I think the best baby food is actually mother's breast milk, and I would let my baby, and hopefully my partner, whomever, would also agree with this, that to let the babies drink as much breast milk for as long as possible, I think that's the best food for babies, okay? To make baby food, what I would probably do is I'd probably basically just take the whole fruits and vegetables and I'd process them down into small particle size. How would I do this? I mean, at present time, I'd probably just do mostly vacuum blending. I do it under vacuum. I just basically put enough liquid to get it to blend, and then the carrots or whatever, and just blend it up. So they basically have mostly like smoothies, but under vacuum, so it keeps the antioxidants. If you're cooking carrots and then blending them up, then you're going to get something soft, but then also, you're releasing some of the nutrients, but you're losing nutrients from the cooking process. So that's just my opinions on that. Next question is Deepak Gutal. What are your views on hydroponically grown greens and veggies? All right, so hydroponically grown greens and veggies. I like to teach you guys good, better, best. I think the best is, soil-grown fruits and veggies, that are grown by the sun, by sunlight, right? Oftentimes hydroponic grown vegetables, maybe in greenhouses, may get some sun, but they also may be grown indoors under lighting, which, I'd rather somebody eat hydroponically grown lettuce than, meat, chicken, fish, dairy, peanut butter, highly processed with monodiglycerides and sugars in there, or, processed vegan foods, but, better yet, instead of hydroponic, if I have the option, I'd rather get soil grown. But I think freshest is also bestest, right? So if the choices are organic, lettuce at the grocery store that kind of looks wilty, not so good, versus hydroponic that has a roots on it in a clamshell that's more vibrant, like I'd go for the vibrant stuff instead of the wilty organic stuff. In general, but not always, hydroponic growers are growing under glass on large commercial farms. That means they're using integrative pest management, which means they're going to be spraying less, and in general, but not guaranteed. Some of the hydroponic farms that I've looked into, that's what they say, and so I like that. So good, better, best is what I like to say. I think that hydroponic nutrient solutions are not where they need to be in terms of adding trace minerals into the plants to make them as fully nutritious as they could be in the soil if they're supplementing with things like rock dust and ocean, minerals and kelp and different things like that. So, but I think they could serve a place, so like my favorite kind of tomatoes generally to eat are hydroponic tomatoes when it's not tomato season and they're not growing in my garden, or I can't get them locally. Generally, I found those to be a little bit higher quality than organic tomatoes that are more pink, because at least the hydroponic ones are, red and, have a lot better flavor, which means in the end, more nutrition for you, even if they're not totally perfectly balanced. So, do the best you can and try to, think critically about these things. Okay, man, should I get the wilty organic lettuce or the nice crisp butter hydroponic lettuce with the roots on it? I'd go for the hydroponic with the roots on it, and then pick out all the outer leaves, leave the roots on it, leave a few leaves in the middle, and then take that and plant that root ball outside. Maybe you'll even get grow your own lettuce plant from the hydroponic grown lettuce there. All right. So let's see. Next question is from Yabba Dabba. All right. Yabba Dabba Doo. All right. Hello, John. What are your thoughts on grains and legumes? Also, what do you think about herbal teas and green tea? Thanks in advance. All right. So the easiest part of the question first, herbal teas and green tea. So I think, herbs and green tea, or Camellia sinensis, which I'm actually growing over there, I think these are great foods and we should be eating them in higher quantities than we are. Number one. Number two, I'm not a big fan of teas, because basically you take the whole leaf, whether it's Camellia sinensis leaf, whether it's, mint leaves, you just basically you grind it up, you put it in water, and basically you get a water extraction of some of the nutrients that are in that leaf, right? So that's like very low nutrition you're getting out of that tea. You're mostly drinking the water, and if you like and enjoy drinking teas, hey, that's great. And if it's the only way you get your Camellia sinensis in you is by drinking the green tea or the black tea or the oolong tea or whatever tea you're drinking, that's great. But I want you guys to up your game. What I prefer to do is I could come out and pick like tea leaves off my tea plant, Camellia sinensis, and I could just eat them, and chew them up. And then I'm getting basically the full nutrition in that leaf that's not just being extracted in water. Because think about it, when you throw away the tea leaves after you brew your tea, like, there's still nutrients in there, right? There's fiber and there's all kinds of stuff. So like, I'd rather just grow the herbs and eat them. I'd rather like blend them into a smoothie under vacuum, so I'm not destroying the antioxidants, that are in there. So that's just my personal opinions. I'd rather take the herbs and juice them, which you'll get more nutrients from a juice than from a tea, although it might be better to chew them up and just, swallow them whole, where you're going to get the most nutrition provided you chew properly and you have a good digestive system that's operating properly. So that's the easy question. The more next question is my thoughts on grain and legumes. So, I classify myself as raw foodist, so not a lot of grains and legumes can be eaten raw. Of course, you can sprout most grains and eat them. You could sprout some beans like lentils and eat them, although many beans should not be eaten raw. That being said, my overall opinion is this for people, right? I think that people should include as many legumes, especially, the high antioxidant legumes, like the different, deep, rich, pigmented color legumes as possible, and as many deeply phytonutrient-rich grains as possible. That being said, I do not want the grains especially to displace other foods you could be eating. So if you give me the choice, John, you could have a bowl of oatmeal, or you could have some greens out of your garden. I'm going to choose the greens every time. Some of you guys might like the oatmeal better, but the greens, in my opinion, a lot more nutritionally dense, a lot more cancer fighting abilities than simply a bowl of oatmeal ever will have, That being said, if you're like on a budget, right, and you don't have a big garden, like, oatmeal's cheap and greens are a lot more expensive. So kind of depends on your specific thing. The other thing I think is that grains, have been hybridized a lot. Now they have more gluten in there, and especially usually when you're talking about grains, people talk about like wheat, which I think is overeaten. I mean, if you're a chicken, eating wheat grains are probably good, but I think people have only started eating grains because of agriculture, when farming started coming along, and mechanization and easy harvesting. And it really kind of flipped our diet upside down. So basically most people have a grain-based diet, and even if they're eating animals, they're still eating grains because the animals are being fed grains, which is not their natural diet either, for most of animals anyways. And so I'm not a big fan of grains actually overall, and I really would encourage you guys to displace the grains and eat other higher quality foods. Now, should you just avoid grains like I do? I pretty much don't eat wheat unless I go to Hippocrates and they have some wheat berries that are sprouted. I don't go out of my way to sprout those. I might sprout buckwheat, which technically is not really a grain, it's a fruit. maybe like once a month, maybe twice a month if I'm lucky. I've been playing with some wild rice, which I don't know, people might call it a grain. I eat, maybe once a month, twice a month. But mainly my diet's fruits and vegetables, and I would encourage you guys to do that. So that's with the grains. Now with the beans, I personally think that beans are a little bit more nutritious than the grains, and I try to go out of my way to eat as many beans as I can in their raw, natural state or, live state. So how do I do this? Well, if I'm going to Ann Wigmore, like I just got back from, I'm eating lots of, sprouted beans. And if I'm at home, then what I do is I'll have like peas. I actually have sugar snap peas growing against the trellis back there, which technically are a type of bean. Carob is a bean. I want to encourage you guys to eat more beans in your diet. And then the other way I've been eating beans and hope to expand this more in the future is I'll do unpasteurized natto, which is basically soybeans that have been cooked. Then they basically inoculate them with the bacteria, they ferment them, and then now they're considered live because they have enzymes including nattokinase. They also create vitamin K2, which can be deficient in a vegan diet. And then I eat these live natto actually. And so that's how I like to eat some beans. That being said, it's not a big part of my diet. I might eat it like once a week, maybe like 8 ounces. I like to probably increase that a bit more. The other thing I like to do is I like to have an unpasteurized tempeh, which can be hard to find, and that's a similar process. I'll put a link down below to a video I made at the raw tempeh factory in Maui, which was amazing. You could learn about raw tempeh. Basically, it's processed the same way they cook the beans. They basically inoculate it, and basically the bacteria or the fungus, whatever you want to call it, basically break down the beans, break down some of the toxins in there, make it more absorbable for us, create additional nutrients for us, and then we could eat that. And the Adzuki bean tempeh was some of the most amazing stuff. Now, most tempeh you buy in the store has been pasteurized. It comes in a plastic package, unless it's frozen, in which case it might still be raw, but you lose a lot of the good texture once you freeze tempeh. I would encourage you guys to make your own natto and tempeh at home. One of these days, I hope to get a tempeh maker that I bought on a Kickstarter like 5 years ago that they still haven't sent me, and I don't know if I'll ever even see it. It's called Tempeh Sure. Maybe they ripped me off. All right. So, yeah. So, and then the other thing is, if you're not all raw, I would encourage you guys to, increase your bean consumption. Beans are quite healthy food, and, you could make good, better, best choices, right? Have beans with your salad. Instead of just having a bean soup, have a salad with a few beans on the top, right? Hey, it's perfectly healthy. I'm not going to be, super, John, beans are cooked, it's bad. So, I mean, whatever, man. Good, better, best is what I like to say. And, I always encourage you guys to displace worse foods with better foods. Going from vegan tofu dogs to beans is definitely better, in my opinion. Going from, maybe some beans to increasing your leafy greens. If you're not eating enough leafy greens is even a better choice. In some cases, beans might be better than eating fruit even, depending on the person and all your stuff, So I would probably, these days, I'd rather have like some fermented beans. Like if you go to Al Lak in Los Angeles, they have the Ito burrito, which Chef Ito basically cooks beans and then he basically ferments them with some bacteria, and then he basically puts it in a burrito, and the burrito's off the hook, the bomb. It's a little expensive. So that's like live cultured beans, which I want to look more into when I have some more free time. All right. So let's see here. Next question is from Zetro Nivlak. How important is it to drink liquids when eating dried, dehydrated fruits like nuts, goji berries, etc.? So I think it is important for us to stay hydrated no matter our diet. Most of my diet is actually fresh fruits and fresh vegetables, including juices, which is basically like 100% liquid, actually, juices. And then, leafy greens and other vegetables are like, depending on which one, 70% on bananas, but like 95 or 90% even on my leafy greens here in my garden. And so we really need to make sure we have this high level of water content within us, because if you're not, if you're eating dried things that have the water removed, it's basically dehydrating you, which is, in my opinion, going to cause some health challenges, especially the dried fruits. Also could do a really good number on your teeth because they stick to your teeth, and then you may be more prone to getting cavities, which is not a good thing. So, whether you want to soak your nuts and seeds first and then eat them already pre-soaked, that'd probably be the best thing, because then they're going to plump up with the water. They're going to be less sticky. You're going to get more water content with them, although it may not be as fun to eat, because I do like to eat just dried fruits. So then afterwards, I'd like to have either liquids before or after the dried fruits. You know, I'd encourage you guys actually to make dried fruits and nuts a smaller part of your diet, and encourage you to eat more fresh stuff. Freshness is always best, is what I like to say. But, you know, if you're traveling, you know, then sometimes you got to go for some dried stuff. But I'd encourage you guys to, you know, go out of your way to eat fresh stuff. And, you know, apples, you know, or oranges, you know, they're pretty easy travel foods. You don't need to take some dried goji berries with you. You know, I like goji berries if I'm eating them, which I don't like to generally eat. I like to just put them in a smoothie. You know, that's probably a really good way to eat your dried fruits, is just put them in a smoothie and put it with water, all right? Let's see, next question. Can't read the name because my paper got messed up. It's Boars Big. Do you ever consider, through your 20+ years raw food journey, to add some raw animal products? I'm 100% raw, about 10 months, and I still have digestive problems, IBS, leaky gut. I do a lot of juice, about 64 ounces a day, mainly carrot, beet, cabbage juice, and orange cucumber juice. Do you have some tips for me? I'm very desperate. Thank you for your work. All right, so first question is, have I ever considered adding some raw animal products? Yes, I've not only considered it, but I have done it. It's like, John, you're not a vegan. All right, fine. Don't call me vegan. I just tell like it is, all right? So probably about 10 years into my journey, you know, I started doing some raw dairy products for whatever reason. I think primarily because I was addicted to the salt and the cheese. The salt and the fat, basically, because I'd get raw cheese, and it would light my sensory experience up, and maybe I thought it was going to give me some B12 and all this stuff. And looking back on it, it was just something I did that just wasn't the smartest thing. You know, and it's a trend that's going on today. A lot of new raw foodists are maybe going back to animal products, and people into veganism going back to animal products. And, you know, I personally don't think it's necessary. You know, I think that people just don't pay enough attention to their diet specifically, and just give a cop out. I'm going to go back to animal products because what I'm doing isn't working. If what you're doing isn't working, fine tune what you're doing to make it work. You know, it is kind of like my personal opinion. When I did the raw dairy, I found a few things. Number one, it was constipating. It constipated the heck out of me. I wasn't having my regular movements. It just didn't feel nice. Number two, I'd get these like weird phlegm ball things coming up in my mouth. It was just, those are nasty as heck. And the other thing I noticed is that, you know, when I did do, the only raw dairy I did mainly was the cheese. I think I didn't really do raw milk. I got cheese that was actually unsalted raw dairy cheese, and it really just didn't taste good. Like, so I just was going through a phase, and, you know, I've had friends that have been into raw, and they go back to dairy, and sometimes it's helped them, and sometimes it hasn't. But basically, here's the thing. Any animal food is a concentrated food. And if you're not concentrating your foods enough and you're not getting enough nutrients, you may feel better with eating some animal foods. But is that the answer? In my opinion, it's not the answer. The answer is to concentrate your foods better to basically do what the animal would do. We are animals. The animals didn't make some nutrients out of thin air or out of magic. They ate lots of greens. You know, the cow should have eaten lots of grass to put on the meat on its body, and it's basically built from grass. Unfortunately, if you're eating animal meats now that are GMO, they're fed GMO corn and soy, you know, that's definitely, you know, you're eating corn and soy GMO secondhand. That's not good either. So what we need to do, you need to eat the greens like more. Like, the problem, I see a lot of people, they don't eat enough greens. Like, animals basically eat greens all day if they're like in nature, depending on the animal, of course, but most animals will eat greens. Or, you know, even if animals are eating other animals, you know, at the bottom of the food chain, one animal ate the greens, and then the other animal ate the animal that ate the greens, or the plant foods. So the problem is, in my opinion, we're not eating enough plant foods, or specifically greens. And in addition, you know, if it's like fish, I feel better with eating fish, John. So, you know, I think that the fish, what are they eating? They're eating algae. And are you guys, as a raw foodist, a raw vegan, or fruitarian, whatever you want to call yourself, are you guys eating algae? I eat algae. I'm an algae eater. I eat seaweed. I eat algae. You know, I take a DHA supplement derived from algae that's on a factory farm grown with algae, because, you know, I don't want to have to like take an animal product to get my DHA, so I don't want to be deficient vegan that's no longer vegan anymore. Like, these are really important to me. So, you know, I'm not going to say eating animals is wrong. I prefer not to do that myself. I would never tell you guys what to do. You know, I would encourage you guys, if you guys do want to eat animals or animal products, I would encourage you guys to raise your own animals. You know, keep your own chickens, you know, eat their eggs. milk your own goats, or nuzzle up to your goats teat and suck away. But I think that the big problem today is we're missing the connection with other creatures on the planet, and like I could never kill another creature to eat its meat, and hopefully if you guys raised animals, they'd be your pets, and you wouldn't really want to kill it either to eat meat. And so there's a better way. You just have to dial in and figure out what you're doing that isn't working, and dial a little bit better. So that, I guess next you ask about, do I have any tips for you about having IBS or leaky gut? So the only tips I would have for you is to reach out to some of my friends like Dr. David Klein or Paul Nissan, who actually wrote books on this exact subject, and find out what they do. I don't have any specific information on what they recommend. I mean, I kind of know what they recommend, but I'm not going to tell you because you guys look them up. And I have a video. Actually, I'll post a link down below that talks about this. In general, you want to, I would, if I had leaky gut, I would try to take a break from eating any kind of heavy foods, things with a lot of fiber. I'd probably basically juice, and I'd strain the juice pretty well, and I'd eat a pretty restrictive diet for a period of time to let my body heal, maybe even do some fasting for limited parts of time, and just give my body the chance to heal. The other thing that would be really important for me is probiotics, right? Probiotics and the microbiome are super huge, super important. I do supplement on a regular basis with different probiotic-rich foods, as well as probiotics, from capsules and from different powders. All right. Let's see. Next question is from Quick Clips TM. Why are the top main media doctors claiming that cooked whole food plant-based diet is sufficient, while others strongly agree that raw is better and even cooking is detrimental? Agree? I'm confused. All right, so you're going to have to ask these medical doctors, or the main doctors claiming cooked whole food plant-based diet is sufficient, about their diet. So I guess, to me, and I don't know what they're thinking or why they're saying what they're doing. I mean, I have some ideas about this, but, I could say that, what is sufficiency? What is sufficiency? Can we live on a cooked whole food diet? Absolutely. Will it give you the optimal health? In my opinion, probably not, right? When you're cooking foods, you're just, things are happening. You're making some foods and some nutrients more bioavailable, potentially, although you are really drastically reducing other nutrients in the food. You are maybe removing some of the toxins that are in the food. So now, like beans, you could cook beans and eat them, whereas you couldn't eat kidney beans raw because you'd probably lose your life. So cooking's like, it's like not always bad, it's not always good, like it's somewhere in between, right? So I like to try to think that, I try to, do things the best as I can, and I try to process as many of my foods myself. I made juice today for 2 hours, and I'm probably gonna make a big salad tonight for dinner. And so I want you guys to, process your own foods at home. And if you are going to cook, and the other thing is, when you process them, whether that's cooking or juicing or otherwise, I want you guys to think about how you can minimize the damage to the nutrients in the food. To me, the most important nutrients in the food are the phytochemicals, the phytonutrients, the trace minerals in there. These things are the protective properties of the food that benefit us, and when you cook them, you lose them. So could you be healthy for the most part on a whole food plant-based diet without really paying attention to what you're eating? Yeah, you're going to be healthier probably than the average American that's eating junk food, but could you take it to the next level and even have a greater level of health, be more healthy? And especially as you mature in your age, will you be healthier and live a longer life by maximizing your specific diet and getting more of these phytonutrients and phytochemicals that are lost during the cooking process? And in my opinion, the answer is yes. Especially some of us that may have not had the healthiest start with life, or maybe have some bad genes. I think it's critically important to get some of these phytonutrients into us. Garlic and onions, brassica family plants. I mean, these have proven, nutritive benefits that can help keep you healthy. And when you cook some of these things, like if I pick this arugula out of my garden, or pick this kale, and I just put it in a pot and cook the kale and ate it, right, without cutting it or doing anything, like I'm not getting the anti-cancer benefits as if I just took it and like ripped off pieces and chewed it up. So like cooking, while you're still getting the kale, wow, this kale is actually quite good. You're not going to get some of the enzymes because you're losing the enzymes, and the enzymes react within the food to create further additional nutrients that might not have been in the food in the first place. This specifically happens with the brassica and the onion family of plants. So I don't know what doctors tell you what they do. You know, I'm sure maybe some doctors don't want to make it too complex for people, which, you know, I just like to tell like it is and share my opinions on these things. And, you know, I'm continuing to be like 99% raw. There are some heat processed foods I eat. I'll put a link down below to a video if you guys want to know what they are. But, you know, I think the overwhelming majority of most people's diets, if they're truly into health, should be basically, you know, raw fruits and vegetables for the most part. All right. Next question is from Aluminum. Have you ever looked into the mucusless free diet? Yes, sure. Arnold Ehret. Many years ago, I read Arnold Ehret books, and I remember specifically how he lost his life despite a mucusless diet is that he slipped. So one of the most important things for me these days, thanks to his books, are actually I buy non-slip shoes instead of just any old shoes, you know, so that they have a better grip, so that I do not slip. All right. That being said, you know, every diet style has its pros and cons. You know, and mucusless diet, on some ways it's great, on some ways it's not so great, and I would encourage you guys to always experiment and see where you're at, and you know, for a period of time, any diet might serve you for a period of time, but then at a certain point, that diet may not serve you anymore, and I want you guys to move on and investigate and learn about, you know, things you could add that may have been, you know, supposedly bad or toxic according to some people's beliefs or styles. So, yeah, that's what I think about that. Vegan lunatic. If you're going to be a lunatic about something, it's probably going to be a vegan lunatic. All right. In your opinion, is it better to wear recycled or second-hand wool, silk, etc., than new vegan clothes that contain microplastics and waste more than the Earth's resources? All right, vegan lunatic, are you trying to set me up? You're gonna. John's not a vegan because he would rather have like old recycled second-hand wool, silk, and other animal furs than to wear brand new microplastic, destroying the earth. When it gets into the oceans, it's going to kill more fish because the microplastics that basically wash out in the washing machine. I mean, come on. Like, this is like really difficult. So, on one, I mean, I see the pros and cons of both, and what I'll say is my opinions, and I'm not going to tell you guys what to do. My opinions, and I haven't done this either, so I'll let you guys know that, is, you know, I think it'd be better to use some old school wool or, you know, animal product. Aside from leather, I still can't, leather is just the skin of another animal. That's pretty gross, but silk, you know, or wool, I mean, I know some of you guys might send me videos on how bad wool is and all this stuff. But I think some secondhand stuff that was already made, maybe you got it at the thrift store for $5 or $2 or whatever it cost, is a lot better than buying some virgin microplastic, you know, new virgin stuff, right? Not only in terms of your health, because those microplastics are probably bad for your health, it's bad for the environment when they break down. The wool is a natural ingredient, you know, the silk's a natural ingredient. You could compost it in your composter once it gets old or whatever, it'll return to the earth. It's not going to cause further damage or destruction. You know, I recently bought a used car, and it happens to have some leather seats. Is it my first choice? No. You know, I didn't buy this car with the intention of getting leather seats. I needed some other options that the car had, that this happened to be the car that I ended up getting. You want to call me not vegan for doing that? That's fine. You know, and here's the thing. I'm just doing the best I can. And if you look up the definition of veganism, it's like, you know, to the best of your ability, or as much as is possible and practicable by you personally, to exclude as many animal products as you can out of your life. So I completely try to do that. I try to exclude as many animal products out of my life as I possibly can. I do not eat animals. I try to not do all that stuff as much as I possibly can. And are there you guys out there that are better than me in this terms? Yes, absolutely, right? Do I try to like pick off bugs sometimes out of my plants, and you know, and relocate them in some instances, and sometimes I have to, you know, spray and kill aphids. Like, I just try to do the best I can. We're all on a journey here, and I encourage you guys to do the best you can. And also think about these things logically and see what makes the most sense for you. I mean, if you're hardcore vegan, man, wearing any kind of animal product is wrong, then at least instead of going for the microplastic stuff, try to go for some sustainably sourced, undyed, cotton fabrics or hemp or some other kind of, better, renewable, fiber. The way cotton is being grown these days, including part of the shirt that was given to me here, is they're just using lots of chemicals and pesticides, and they have GMO cotton. It's really bad news. Like, we're really hurting the planet. So, in the end, I want you guys to be more responsible and conscious of your choices, whether your food choices or whether your things you're buying and will be consuming. All right. Next question is from Zetro Nivlak. Your thoughts on dehydrated fruits. Your thoughts on mono meals versus recipes. So dehydrated fruits, right? So, I always like to teach you guys good, better, best, right? Fresh fruits, I think, are the best. If you bought a lot of fruits and they're going to go bad, it'd probably be better to freeze some of them. You could dehydrate some of them so they store longer. I like to freeze dry them personally now so that I could travel with them. Then I actually have them stored in case there's like zombie apocalypse or something like that. And will I eat them? Yes, absolutely. If I'm traveling, I took some freeze-dried fruit because it's super light, traveled with me to Chicago when I was on a recent trip to Chicago. I was eating a lot of freeze-dried fruit, but I was eating fresh fruit from the hotel lounge as well. That wasn't organic, although I didn't seem to break out. But, once again, do the best you guys can. And even though I'm not perfect all the time, although if I'm at home, most all the fruits and vegetables I eat are organic, aside from some small percentages that certain fruits and vegetables are not available organic, such as my cactus fruits that I juiced today. So yeah, eat fresh whenever you can. If you have trees and they're going to go bad, then I would encourage you to preserve them instead of not eat them. That's always better. I like freeze drying better than dehydration. Dehydration, you could lose 40 to 60% of the nutrients. Freeze drying keeps like 99% of the nutrients, and the taste is amazing and the texture is amazing. Freeze dried jackfruit tastes like fortune cookies. I'm not joking. And if you have, just dry jackfruit, it's just like chewy and gooey, and it's just, you lose the flavor, man. It sucks. Let's see, your thoughts on mono meals versus recipes. I think they both have their place. I like the concept of the mono meal and being able to digest things simply and easily, and I still eat plenty of mono meals, to this day. I didn't have a mono meal today because I had coconuts with the cactus fruit, although I was supposed to eat a papaya, which is a mono meal. I'll have berries usually, like I had strawberries yesterday as 2 pounds of strawberries, the mono meal. The day before that I had strawberries with blueberries, which is not technically a mono meal. That being said, I think mono meals are good, and see what feels right to you. For the most part, I like to have like a juice in the day, maybe a mono meal, a fruit in the day, and then maybe like a salad in the day, and that's usually like my 3 main meals. So, I think that sometimes we should keep it simple, and also depending on where you are at in your journey. Sometimes, our digestive systems are wrecked up, and I think mono meals can be beneficial to help us make it easier to digest things, also to give us the opportunity to see if we are more allergic to things. I mean, if you're only monoing like one certain food and your body reacts, then maybe that food's not so good for you, or maybe something on that food's not so good for you. Maybe your body's reacting because you're not really used to eating that food because your microbiome is reacting to that food. But if you have a recipe with all these different things, right, and you have a reaction, you don't know exactly what's going on. That being said, with recipes, I like simple recipes. So if you want to know some of the recipes that I actually eat, click the link down below, gygbook.com. There's a book that has basically, I think, over 100 recipes or 75 recipes or something of things actually I make. So my meals are based around being nutrient dense and having as much phytonutrients and, healing properties in the foods with little nuts and seeds. I think this is best. I love eating my prepared, salads that I make or my soups that I get to eat at night, as well as mono meals. So I think they all have their place, and see what feels right to you. And I would encourage you guys to mix it up. Have some mono meals sometimes, have some recipes sometimes. I try to keep my recipes fairly easy and not have like a million ingredients. I was in the mindset like maybe 10 years ago when I only have no more than 6 ingredients in each meal, and I think that's good. But now that I'm including more, I think the food tastes more complex, and it's in some levels even healthier for me. All right. Next question is from Erica Schellenderbrandt. Best juicer for fruits. Just bought an Omega from you and love it for greens, hard vegetables, and citrus, and even berries. The plastic gears will not chew apple skins or grape skins. All right. So I guess the question for me that I have for you is, how do you define best, right? like a lot of juicers don't necessarily handle fruits that well. You know, and especially some of the slow juicers don't tend to basically grind up the skins, which where most of the phytonutrients are in the fruits. So what do you do? So the de facto standard for, you know, juicing fruits would be like a press. So if you just take an apple and put it in a press and press it out, you'll press the juice out, but then you're not getting the nutrients in the skin. So then they have like the pure juicer, which is the upgraded, or better than the Norwalk, which I own. It has a grinder that runs at 4,000 RPM. It grinds up everything, and then you could press that out in the second stage. And one day, I have a video on this, one of these. I cut up apples into little pieces, put it in the press, and it made basically mostly like a mostly clear juice. And then I ground up the apples with the grinder and then put it in the press, and it made a much more deeply, richly pigmented juice. And that was the pigments of the skin coming out in the juice because I ground them up in the first step. So, you know, I guess it depends on your goals and what you need. So here's my opinion on that. So basically for fruit, what I'd recommend is this, right? I don't know which omega juice you got, but if you got the omega VSJ 843, which is the one I recommend normally for people that want to juice fruits, because traditionally that does the best, although it doesn't grind the skin optimally, you know, on certain fruits, because skin is actually pretty hard to chew up. What I would recommend is this. Get a vacuum blender, vacuum blend your fruits up first. That'll basically break up all the skins, and then take that liquid and then pour that through the juicer in the VSJ anyway. Other juicers may not work. And then the VSJ will basically separate out the liquid from the blended mixture into juice and into pulp. You may be oxidizing your fruits a bit more this way. And I don't know if the nutrient gain because of the pulp skin is going to be better or worse if you do it this way. But what I might want to do instead is this. You want to juice your apples or grapes first in your VSJ, and then take the pulp only, with some coconut water, you know, and then blend that in your blender, and then pour that blended mixture back through the juicer. So now you could have basically an extraction of the skin nutrients only from the blender and dilute it into coconut water. And so like this is a technique I use with peppers. If I want to get all the nutrients out of my peppers or purple carrots, I'll basically take the pulp out of the juicer, blend it with coconut water, and then I'll basically rejuice it. I'll put a link down below to a video I already made talking about this. So I hope that answers your question. All right. And hope you followed along. All right. So Rose Lane Maybell. Do you live in Florida close to Paul Nisson? I'm thinking about stopping eating meats for biblical reasons. Can you use a blender to juice veggies and fruits? Number one, I do not live close to Paul Nisson in Florida. I know Paul, he's really cool, and every time I go to Florida in his area, I try to visit him. Let's see, you're thinking about stopping eating meats for biblical reasons. I think it's great to stop eating meat for biblical reasons or any other reason. Actually, I think I did a video with Paul about this topic. I'll put a link down below to that video. Can you use a blender to juice vegetables and fruits? So technically, yes, you can. I highly discourage using a blender to juice veggies and fruits. You're basically doing a lot of oxidative damage. I'll post a couple links down below to a video where I talk about oxidative damage, you know, in a blender versus a juicer, a slow juicer specifically, and you're going to have a lot more phytonutrients created in a slow juice. And in my opinion, the phytonutrients are the most important components of the fruits and the vegetables that you're losing by oxidation when you're blending them and then just simply straining them. So yeah, that's my answer to that question. And next question is from Justice. What are the best raw foods that give you the healthiest weight you have? And what raw foods give you the extra smooth and glowing skin you have? All right, Justice. So the raw foods that give me the healthy weight I have are basically just fresh fruits and fresh vegetables. I can't say I have any specific ones. I would say eat lots of leafy greens as I'm surrounded with them in my garden here today. You know, I like to eat, you know, basically big vegetable heavy meals for dinner. I like to have like a fruit meal in the middle of the day, and then for breakfast meal is usually like some vegetables that have been juiced, maybe with a little bit of fruit to make it taste good. And I mean, basically for a healthy weight is we want to basically don't eat too many calories. And luckily, because the fruits and vegetables, they're some of the lowest calorie foods because they contain a lot of water, you can't stuff a lot of them in. Although I did recently get into trouble, if I remember, I'll put a link down below to a video. I gained weight on eating fruits and vegetables, and that's because they weren't fresh. They're freeze-dried, which removes the water, which means I could eat a lot more of them, which was not a good thing. And I think pretty much after my trip to Puerto Rico, you know, and Wigmore, I lost weight, and I think I'm pretty much keeping it off, all right? And so And the other thing is, so the raw food specifically I talk about are fresh fruits and vegetables. I'm not talking about eating lots of nuts and seeds. I eat maybe a handful of nuts or seeds a day. They can be considered raw, and they're not healthy, as well as things like processed raw foods that come in packages, like kale chips or other things, right? I want you guys to focus on fresh fruits and fresh vegetables should be the dominant part of your raw foods diet. And then what foods give you the extra smooth and glowing skin you have. So, I don't have any specific food I eat for my glowing skin. If I had to say anything, I'd say bell peppers. I eat bell peppers and juice a lot of bell peppers on a regular basis. The orange, red, and yellows. I do not eat the green ones. They're high in vitamin C, so vitamin C can help you build your collagen. I have a video with Marcus Rothkrantz, if I remember, put a link down below, where we talk about this and some of the other things I do for my skin. But my skin is not a direct result because of my diet, although that's a component of it. I do other things for my skin as well, like stay hydrated. I drink lots of juices, which stays hydrated, which then is better for your skin. And, I think I have actually fairly good skin, for me. So, hope that helps you out. Next question is from the Limitless Man. Question from someone in your position: if you was to do a long water fast, would you actually detox anything since you're already clean? So that's a good question. So number one, I don't know that I recommend necessarily a long water fast. If you do want to do a water fast, I do encourage you guys and to only do a supervised water fast. It has been coming up lately that people have been literally potentially damaging themselves, their health, their microbiome, due to longer water fasts. So I think you should only do supervised water fasts. My dad did do a 30-day supervised water fast with only beneficial effects, in my opinion. He doesn't seem to have any major health issues other than maybe just not eating the right foods after his water fast. That being said, as much and as clean as I strive to eat and do the right things and all this, I still think that whether a juice fast or a water fast may be beneficial for me, right? I think that there's a constant influx of toxins in our environment from the air I'm breathing, from the planes flying overhead, from, radon coming up from my foundation in the house. From the formaldehydes when I go and stay in hotels. From toxins in organic food if it's not really organic. And here's the thing, right? Would a water fast or juice fast help maybe my body eliminate toxins more quickly? Yes. Is my body in a constant state of trying to remove toxins on a regular and everyday basis? Yes. Our body does not want to over accumulate these things. And if you're eating, a fairly clean diet, we're getting toxins in, and toxins are also going out, through pores in our skin, through infrared saunas, through sweating, through breathing things out from our breath, from urinating, from going to the bathroom. Number two, from shedding things and coming off of our skin, from skin brushing. So we're always in a mode of getting toxins in, getting toxins out, and if you're relatively healthy like I am, I think I'm fairly efficient at getting toxins in and toxins out, but there's probably still some toxins within me. And one of these days I want to do those crazy tests where they test all the toxins inside you and all this stuff, right? But I think it's also really important not to get too crazy about all this stuff and think you're always dirty and you're never clean enough and all this stuff. Just eat some healthy food. That's why I like to juice in the morning, and I like to have I do intermittent fasting where I basically don't eat for 12 hours of the day, where I'm only drinking water. Most of that time is I'm sleeping, and then right before I go to bed and right when I wake up, I'm just drinking water. And some intermittent fasting can help our body do the house cleaning, and you're not just shoving food in the pie hole like every second of the day, right? So yeah, I still think I have some toxins, and it could be helpful to maybe take some charcoal or some zeolite or different, could I go on a colon cleanse? Yeah, that'd probably be good, and when I feel the time's right, I'll do it. All right. Next question is from Christina S. Hi, John. I want to buy a juicer. Are there any new models coming out for 2019? So I just came back from the Houseware show in Chicago, and there's no significant new model juicers coming out for 2019 that I'm aware of. And if there are, I will show them on my Discount Juicers channel. At present time, I like the Omega VSJ843, and that's the best juicer I like for what I juice, although it may not be the best one for you. I like it because it's easy to clean, 3 minutes, and gets a relatively high yield on most things for a vertical juicer. And it also is self-feeding, but you do have to pre-cut your produce up. So yeah, For more information, check out my other YouTube channel, discountjuicers.com. Last question is from Riss Lee. Have you ever traveled somewhere where eating raw was a challenge, and how do you overcome that challenge? I've had the issue and had to eat 1, sometimes 2 cooked meals a day instead of 3 raw meals. I was not high in energy and wanted your opinion. Thanks. Alright, Riss, so I've never really traveled to anywhere where I had to eat cooked meals and raw food was not available. I think the most challenging spot in the world that I've been to was like Iceland. And when I went to Iceland, I mean, fruits were like super expensive, and vegetables, like they didn't have a lot of vegetables. Although I found a way to make it work. You know, I'd stay at these hotels and they'd have basically you know, free breakfast, and you know, I'd eat like more bananas than I would normally like, but I still ate raw, you know. And so I think it depends on you, you know, and how important it is for you to stay raw and when you travel. I think, you know, I don't know where you travel to that you weren't able to eat raw meals. Maybe like if I go to India, I don't know if that'd be a situation depending on where I am in India. You know, I think that some places they just don't have fresh food. I mean, every place I've ever gone in the world, maybe unless it's maybe a third world country, I mean, all the places I've been to, there's always been fresh food to eat. Sometimes I eat a very restrictive raw diet, like I might eat a lot of fruits. Like some places I won't trust the leafy greens that are being grown, you know, and I probably better even cook them than to eat them raw on some levels, because you just don't know the sanitary conditions. All the countries I've been to, you know, I always find a way, you know, bring some seeds, grow some sprouts. You know, they always have fruits available. So, you know, I don't know. I've always been able to do it myself, and I don't know, you know, what it is. You know, I also many times will bring green powder. So sometimes I'll just bring bottles of green powders with me on previous trips, and I just have green powders with water and fruit. And maybe I was probably under eating, but that's probably a good thing because I'm kind of fasting at that point. I guess nowadays life's a lot easier because I have a freeze dryer. So now if I know if I'm going somewhere where I might not have enough food, I'll basically just pack a lot of freeze dried food with me because it's like highly concentrated food, only removing the water, and you know, I'll be able to eat that way. So I mean, I guess that's the other option, depending on how much money you have. If you buy a freeze dryer, you could start freeze drying stuff and make basically packs of freeze dried food to eat, you know, along with your other fruits and other vegetables you could source locally. You know, sometimes I travel with a juicer, you know, and if anything, you know, most places have carrots in the world that I think, you know, and I just juice carrots and drink carrot juice. And actually, I'd rather juice carrots and drink carrot juice than eat bananas. But that's me personally, and maybe I'll have an upcoming video on that as well. All right, so hope that answered your question. Hope that helps you guys out, all the guys that I answered your guys' questions today. If you guys enjoyed this format, like my Q&A videos, please be sure to give this video a thumbs up. I'll be sure to do more Q&A videos in the future. Also, be sure to click that subscribe button right down below so you don't miss out on my new upcoming episodes. I'm coming out every 5 to 7 days. You never know where I'll show up, what we'll be learning on my YouTube channel. And make sure you click the little bell so you get notified as my new videos come out. Also, be sure to check my past episodes. My past episodes are a wealth of knowledge. Over 500 episodes at this time on this YouTube channel dedicated to teach you guys the best way to eat more fruits and vegetables so you guys can be healthier. So with that, my name is John Kohler with OKRaw.com. We'll see you next time. Until then, remember, keep eating your fresh fruits and vegetables. They're always the best.